Here are the top stories for today, September 3, 2020. President Duterte calls for solidarity among nations in the fight against COVID-19. UNESCO classifies the Mindanao massacre case as resolved as proof that the justice system works for press freedom. 39 Filipino seafarers are reported missing as their ship encounters Typhoon Massacre in the East China Sea. And the PCOO calls on youth leaders in northern Mindanao to help spread the right information on preventing COVID-19. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte called for deeper solidarity among nations to combat coronavirus disease 2019. In an online conference led by King Abdullah II and attended by a number of world leaders, Duterte called on stronger cooperation among nations to facilitate economic recovery and effectively combat terrorism and violent extremism.
No country, big or small, rich or poor, has been spared by the COVID-19 pandemic. Our urgent common response was to close down borders and impose limits to mobility and trade. The repercussions, as we are seeing now, are grim and far-reaching. We have economies in recession, institutions in crisis, and societies in a state of uncertainty. As insecurity rises, the fear of the other and the unknown heightens. But the path of recovery requires more openness, deeper solidarity, and stronger cooperation among nations.
President Duterte called on his fellow world leaders to build a new order in combating terrorism. In the same speech, Duterte said the government will continue to work on narrowing deep-seated inequalities as part of the whole-of-nation approach against terrorism. The Philippines has been fighting terrorism for years, the latest of which was the twin suicide bombings in Jolo that left 15 people dead and 75 others injured. The Abu Sayyaf group is believed to be behind the notorious killings in the country.
Local terrorist groups such as the Abu Sayyaf, the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, and the New People's Army of the Communist Party of the Philippines have been emboldened. They exploit the situation to serve their nefarious activities. Now more than ever, our resolve is stronger. We will not let up in our fight against terrorism, and we will not allow COVID-19 to bring our people to their knees. Let us seize this historic opportunity to build a new order, one that is more secure, just, and humane, where there is no room for barbarity and terrorist and extremist forces.
The Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases is discussing whether it will allow the resumption of provincial bus operations in Metro Manila. Under the general community quarantine, provincial buses are still barred from entering Manila until the end of the month.
Paano naman daw po yung provincial buses? Kailan daw po papayagan?
Opo, yan po ay pinag-uusapan na ngayon sa IATF. Wala pa pong pinal na desisyon dahil nga po lumalabas po sa mga pag-aaral sa iba't ibang bansa na transportation is one of the fastest way to spread COVID-19. So antabayan na lang po natin kung magkakaroon na ng desisyon ang IATF. Sa ngayon po wala pa.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines is waiting for the Bureau of Corrections to facilitate the release of U.S. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Joseph Scott Pemberton. AFP spokesperson Marine Major General Edgar Arevalo said the military learned about the release order of Pemberton only through media reports and have yet to receive a copy. He said the release of Pemberton will be facilitated by the Bucor and not by the military. Pemberton was sentenced to 6 to 10 years imprisonment for killing a transgender woman, Jennifer Laude, inside a bathroom of an Olongapo motel on October 11, 2014. In a decision issued by the Olongapo City Regional Trial Court Branch 74, it said Pemberton can be released on the virtue of his good behavior. Pemberton has served over 5 years and 8 months in prison, and the court credited more than 4 years on his jail time. This yields a total of 10 years, 1 month, and 10 days in jail. Violators of the curfew and quarantine protocols may soon be fined with penalties and community service, as putting them in jail may put them at risk of contracting the COVID-19 disease. According to the Joint Task Force COVID Shield, arrest and the filing of charges could be the last resort if the violators become unruly and disrespectful to law enforcers, or the violators are repeat offenders. Lieutenant General Guillermo Eleazar said it is advisable that violators are punished by community service or payment of fine as sanctions, as almost all the barangays and local government units have no detention facilities. The tendency is to turn over those who would be arrested to the local police for detention. The proposed community service would be additional manpower for the projects and programs of the LGUs, such as in the cleanliness and beautification and fixing of damaged school facilities. The money collected from violators will be an additional source of income for COVID-19 response and the programs of LGUs. Valenzuela City targets to test 10% of its population by the end of the year, while Quezon City focuses on children being exposed to COVID-19 while inside their households. More on this from Chris Crismundo.
San Juan City lifted its liquor ban, but drinking alcoholic beverages in public places and social gatherings remains prohibited. Residents are only allowed to drink alcoholic beverages inside their homes, and they should observe physical distancing. The citywide curfew hours is from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. In Quezon City, more children and adolescents are reportedly infected with COVID-19 due to close contact with positive adults inside their homes. The increase was mentioned during the presentation of the accomplishment report on Bantay COVID monitoring and contact tracing platform. Data shows that some 920 children aged 0 to 10 years old and some 995 adolescents between 11 to 18 years old are close contacts of positive patients while inside their homes. The data supported the theory that further transmission of COVID-19 occurs within the households of patients. With the help of Bantay COVID, Mayor Joy Belmonte said the city government can craft new policies and strategies to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 within the communities. In other news, the Valenzuela city government is targeting to test at least 10% of its population by the end of this year as part of the preventive measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. Mayor Rex Gatchalian said as of August 30, they have already tested up to 20,729 individuals. The city government has conducted mass-targeted reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction or RT-PCR testing for both symptomatic and asymptomatic residents. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
Still to come, UNESCO classifies the Maguindanao massacre case as resolved as proof that the justice system works for press freedom. 39 Filipino seafarers are reported missing as their ship encounters Typhoon Massacre in the East China Sea. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, has officially classified the Ampatuan massacre as a resolved case. Moez Chakchuk, UNESCO's Assistant Director General for Communication and Information, acknowledged the concrete efforts of the government in bringing to justice the suspects in the 2009 massacre. He said he is pleased to confirm that the case is resolved both in the UNESCO Observatory of Killed Journalists and the 2020 Director General Report on the Safety of Journalists. A total of 58 people, including 32 journalists, died in the Ampatuan massacre, also known as the Maguindanao Massacre. The Presidential Task Force on Media Security, or PTFOM, said it is a proof that the country's justice system is safeguarding press freedom, is truly working under the Duterte administration. The National Bureau of Investigation has filed criminal charges before the Office of the Ombudsman against 19 immigration officers and personnel for their alleged involvement in the Pastillas money-making scheme at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Aside from the 19 BI personnel, Leah Wu, owner of Empire International Travel and Tours, was also recommended to be charged for the crime of corruption of public officials. Immigration Officer Jeffrey Ignacio was likewise recommended to be charged for qualified trafficking for recruiting a lady Taiwanese citizen to work in the Philippines despite being a holder of a tourist visa. According to a whistleblower, the immigration officers and personnel conspired in requesting and receiving money, gifts, and other benefits, including sexual favors from trafficked women. They allegedly allowed foreign nationals illegal entry in the country in exchange for pastillas money. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Immigration on Wednesday welcomed the NBI's filing of cases against 20 personnel supposedly involved in an illegal protection racket for Chinese nationals. The NBI on Tuesday filed charges against BI personnel involved in the Pastilla scheme, where they facilitate the entry of Chinese nationals working in Philippine offshore gaming operators in exchange for 10,000 pesos in grease money. The scheme was exposed by Senator Risa Ontiveros in a Senate hearing in February. Commissioner Jaime Morente has directed the BI National Operations Center to strengthen its monitoring in all international ports and extension offices. The Philippine Embassy in Tokyo on Thursday confirmed that 39 Filipinos on board a cargo ship that went missing at the East China Sea on Wednesday. A report from Japan's Kyodo News said that one of the Filipinos' crew members was earlier rescued. The embassy, however, has yet to confirm this as of posting. Deputy Chief of Mission Robespierre Bolivar said they are waiting for updates from Japanese authorities on the status of the rescue operation. The Panamanian registered freighter carrying 43 crew members and about 5,800 cows was on its way to the Chinese port of Tangshan from New Zealand when it issued a distress signal about 185 kilometers west of Amani Oshima Island in Kagoshima Prefecture. The call for help came as strong winds and torrential rain lashed the area due to Typhoon Maysak. South Cotabato has closed down again its borders to contain the continuous spread of COVID-19 in the province. More on this and other news from the provinces from Marita Moahe.
South Cotabato Province has shut down its borders anew effective Tuesday to non-essential travels. Governor Reynaldo Tamayo Jr. said the move is to limit the movement of residents as well as the entry of people from other areas in the wake of the surge of COVID-19 cases in the neighboring provinces and cities. Tamayo said the border closure would enable the province to properly contain the further spread of COVID-19 cases that emerged in 2 of its municipalities in the last 2 weeks. The border lockdown covers the province borders with the city and Sultan Kudarat, which already declared local transmission of the disease. Meanwhile, the Regional Task Force for COVID-19 One Caraga Shield has approved the request of the local government of Butuan to place portions of 40 barangays under the modified enhanced community quarantine. As of September 1, Butuan City has a total of 226 confirmed COVID-19 cases with 119 recoveries, 99 active cases, and 8 recorded deaths. Meanwhile, the city government said it has already opened its main public market, Dalangihan Public Market, following a 1-week closure starting August 26 after some of the stallholders were found positive for COVID-19. Market goers were reminded to observe health protocols and guidelines, while vendors and stall owners were required to present negative test results before they can resume operation. In other news, following the recommendation of the National Interagency Task Force, the local government placed the entire Iligan City under modified ECQ on Wednesday. The MECQ will take effect from September 2 to September 30. The order also reimposed the home quarantine passes, this time on a color coding scheme that grouped the city's villages in 6 clusters. The EO also limits operations of businesses, prohibits the sale of liquor, as well as imposes curfew beginning 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. of the next day. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Moahe.
And in our business news, local government units may decide on the timing of the opening of internet cafes and gyms in their areas. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez explained that some LGUs will need more preparations, including the opening of gyms and computer shops, to prevent them from being venues for the spread of COVID-19. Lopez said LGUs could also add more health measures on top of the general guidelines and specific health protocols stated in the Department of Trade and Industry's Memorandum Circular 20-44. Lopez said the government hopes the return of more economic activities would help the economy to recover, adding that health protocols should be strictly implemented to avoid a further spread of COVID-19. Up next, the PCOO calls on youth leaders in Northern Mindanao to help spread the right information on preventing COVID-19. And a group of cops in Davao City help a woman about to give birth. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar has asked youth leaders in northern Mindanao to help disseminate correct information and awareness on the COVID-19 pandemic. Andanar underscored the role of the Sangguniang Kabataan in helping educate their communities to ensure compliance with health protocols and prevent the spread of COVID-19. Andanar said the core message of the government's campaign against COVID-19 can be summed up with the acronym PDITR, or Prevention, Detection, Isolation, Treatment, and Reintegration. With existing education, information, and communication campaigns from the Department of Health, Andanar said youth leaders can help disseminate vital information through social media. Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao Health Minister Dr. Safrullah Dipatuan and his wife have tested positive for COVID-19. In a statement Wednesday evening, Dipatuan said that he and his wife tested positive despite following all the precautionary measures. Dipatuan and his wife are currently at the isolation facility of the Amay Pakpak Medical Center in Marawi City. Dipatuan added that he is asymptomatic while his wife is experiencing mild to moderate symptoms. He urged those in close contact with them for the past 2 weeks to self-quarantine and immediately go to the nearest health facility if they experience manifestations of the virus. Meanwhile, the office of the Chief Minister in Cotabato City is closed down after 3 employees tested positive for COVID-19. The BARMM said the infected employees belong to the OCM's Finance, Budget, and Management Services section. The 3 employees, who are residents of Cotabato City, had no known exposure to any confirmed cases and no travel history to areas with local or sustained community transmission. Contact tracing has been initiated upon confirmation of the first case last August 30. Officials and employees of the OCM have been advised to observe work-from-home arrangements for the meantime. Physical transactions in the OCM building are temporarily suspended until further notice. In our foreign news, potential successors of outgoing Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe have accelerated lobbying for the top post. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party will hold a leadership election on September 14. The parliament will meet 3 days later, when the new LDP leader will have to prove majority to be elected as the Prime Minister. The outgoing premier is suffering from ulcerative colitis, which seems to have revived and came to light last month. He, however, will hold the office until the successor is chosen. Current government chief cabinet secretary Yoshihide Suga and Japan's former defense chief Shigeru Ishiba are said to be in the run for the top post. Fumio Kishida, former foreign minister and now policy chief of the LDP, is also solidifying efforts to move up to lead the party and the country. The Department of Tourism expressed support for the Ridge to Reef Corridor Plan, a key strategy being explored to ensure Baguio City's gradual and safe reopening to tourists within the year. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat expressed that the plan is worth emulating in other parts of the country. The plan seeks to enable seamless travel for tourism in the Lupisin area or between Baguio City and the provinces of La Union, Pangasinan, Ilocos Sur, and Ilocos Norte. On Tuesday, Puyat witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong and governors from Ilocos region. The DOT will also dedicate funds to support programs such as the Baguio Visitor Information and Travel Assistance, or Visita, the setup of the BaguioCreativeCity.com website and e-commerce platform, and the revival of the country's weaving and fashion industry. Law enforcers in Davao City helped the woman who suddenly gave birth in front of a police station in delivering her baby on the roadside. The Talomo police station said several of their personnel were on a routine morning run when they passed by a pregnant woman experiencing labor pains along the highway of Matina crossing. The woman and her husband turned out to have been waiting for a ride going to the hospital for the expected delivery, but the mother unexpectedly went on labor on the street. The mother safely delivered a healthy baby girl. After delivering the baby with the help of the police station's nurse, the rescuing police officers immediately brought the mother and her newborn baby to a hospital. Talomo Station Commander Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Lau commended the police officers for immediately responding to a distress call. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. President Duterte calls for solidarity among nations in the fight against COVID-19. UNESCO classifies the Mindanao massacre case as resolved as proof that the justice system works for press freedom. 39 Filipino seafarers are reported missing as their ship encounters Typhoon Massacre in the East China Sea. And the PCOO calls on youth leaders in northern Mindanao to help spread the right information on preventing COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Stay safe and good day to all.